Spox are a leading UK and now global company providing custom brand kits, whether that is clothing or socks. They are with you every single step of the way by bringing your idea to light. They exclusively work with fitness communities, business communities in the UK and worldwide. To check out everything that they do, head over to www.spox.uk.
Then we move through the blocks of that self-confidence, that self-worth. And once we move through those, just do it becomes really easy, because then at that point you're like, okay, I know the place and space that I'm in. I know I'm worth something, and I know my voice has value. Now I'm going to get it out there.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom. I am your podcast host, Luke Beestall, and I know I've said quite a lot recently we have international guests on, and I know where you're thinking, you're probably going to think the United States of America. Well, actually, no, we have got a female entrepreneur all the way from Canada, Alberta to be specific, and she is very big on bringing people together via connection. Her actual sort of name on Instagram is Let's Connect, which I think is fantastic. Her name is Kassandra with a K. I'm just putting that out because people say it with a C. And she is a social media manager, but the biggest things that she predominantly works on is confidence and connection. But I just want to share this because we're really going to go through this story where she's had multiple moments and still has moments today, which a lot of you guys will relate to. I can definitely relate to, which is imposter syndrome. And I think it's really important to sort of talk openly, be vulnerable and share that. And we were just talking beforehand, and she's very much open, authentic, and willing to share her journey to add value to you guys listening in. So without further ado, Kassandra, I just want to welcome you in. How are you today?
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. I am doing so well. I'm glad we're doing this.
I know, so am I. And obviously you are a fellow podcast host yourself. And I think we've obviously got a very, very similar sort of approach to the podcast as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so fun to just have conversations with people and hear each other's stories. I think, that's what, like you said, brings us to each other and brings us from across the world into the same room and able to connect and relate to one another and just keep things real.
Yeah, I mean, just so the audience can sort of, and I love that, the realness, the conversations, the connections all over the world. From obviously, if anyone's sort of like coming in right now, want to know a little bit more, not about like going right back through time, but just a brief intro of what it is that you do and who you help and stuff like that. That would be really great for the guys to understand a bit better.
Absolutely. So I help other entrepreneurs and business owners with all of their social media needs. So I constantly get clients that come to me and say, I hate social media. I know I have to be there, but I cannot get it together. I either have anxiety about it, or I stress about it, or I worry about other people's opinions, or I don't have the time for it. And so a lot of the work that I do is kind of twofold. It has that energetics piece around that imposter syndrome and how we're showing up online. And then it's also the content creation and the copywriting and all the nitty gritty things that sometimes just feel really overwhelming for us. And so I have been doing this for now 5 years, helping with, business owners from startups all the way to 8 figures and all the way across the world. And so it's just been such a journey.
I love that. I mean, 5 years, congratulations as well. 5 years in business is definitely something to celebrate, but I just love the way that you sort of articulated the sort of things and pockets that you do. So I think anxiety and social media and trying to be authentic and share, I guess, a story about who you are via social media is quite daunting. So for you then, when did this moment or realization come to you that, do you know what? I'm going to set up a business and work with people on the social media?
Yeah, so I have always been the social butterfly of my friends group. I've always been the person that's getting everybody together, doing all the things, right? And so social media, as it, introduced itself into my life, became very natural for me. I was always the one taking pictures and posting them on Facebook, and we'd have the album every year of our school year, and it was great. I was that person. And so as I graduated high school, I thought I was going to go into psychology. I thought I was going to be a psychologist.
Right.
And I did my undergrad in psychology. I loved it. I learned so many things about our brain and humans and just all of the things and how we work and operate. And then I went into marketing, and that is where I really found like my voice and my energy that really brought me up. And so once I was done all of that, I spent some time at an internship helping a local business, and they were a naturopathic business. They had, I think, 4 or 5 staff at the time. And I was able to help integrate different campaigns to help them grow their business, expand the clinic, expand their offerings. And I saw what social media could do for a small business and how social media could really help grow and expand their experience and their way of helping people. And so from there, I was like, I think this is there's something here. I don't come from an entrepreneurial background. I've worked in a 9 to 5 traditional job for forever. That was what I knew. That's what I thought I was going to do. And, someone said to me, I think you need to run with this. I think you need to start something here. And I just went with it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And here we are.
Gosh, that is amazing though. And just, I want to touch on this because I know there's probably even people I know listening to this, by the way, that are content creators that are wanting to sort of leaning to this social, because let's be honest, right? The digital world is so fast paced at the moment. Everything's growing. Tech companies, there's startups happening left, right, and center in this world. With the internship that you sort of went, did you actively reach out to them? Was that an advert that you sort of looked at, and did you apply? I just love to know sort of that process.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was a job posting.
Okay.
That I saw out of college, and I applied for it and did the interview process and did all of the things. And they were like, yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Brilliant stuff. And then obviously from that experience, how long was the internship?
It was just over a year long.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's good time. So obviously it gave you a bit of space to sort of develop the business and obviously expand it with the offerings and stuff like that. What did you learn most about yourself in that internship?
Well, great question. I think what I learned was that I have the capacity and capability to do things on my own. A lot of times, in my I worked in that world forever, and everything relied on somebody else, right? You
Yep.
just showed up, you did your task, you did your job, and somebody else would think of the bigger picture. It was somebody else's responsibility to make the business move forward. And in this, because it was such a small team, because it was like a mom and pop style shop, it was
Okay.
everyone's hands are on deck here. And if you have an idea and it's valuable and, we can make it happen, let's make it happen. And so I felt I had a lot of autonomy in that role. And so when they handed me, they were like, here's what we've been doing. It's not great. Take what you know and run with it. They really trusted me and my knowledge. And that is what I think I learned a lot about myself, that I could do it instead of relying on somebody else and waiting for somebody else's approval. It was like, hey, if you've got an idea and you want to do it, get it done and we'll sign off and have a great day. And so it was really interesting to be able to see myself shift in that and take autonomy of myself and say, okay, I'm responsible for this role, and anything that I do in this role can be beneficial for the business. So how am I going to show up differently?
I like that. Really, really, really great sort of feedback there, because where you said about, I mean, obviously people will understand this. If they're in employment, you have like maybe a to-do list, you walk through the door and it's like papers on the desk, or you kind of know what your tasks are for the day. Like you say, obviously you just said there, it was all hands on deck. They gave you autonomy, freedom to sort of, right, do what you can. We need help. We've got to try something different because what we're doing at the moment's not working. But how you've been able to build up that, I guess, confidence that you can do it on your own and that you don't have to be reliant on a paycheck or reliant on somebody else doing the work for you. So I guess, how old was you at that time, Kassandra, doing the internship?
I was 20, 23?
Wow, 22, 23. All right. So even in that, was there a lot of sort of, I mean, emotion wise, did you sort of feel, because I know, in business, right, obviously it can be deemed as a highlight reel. It's all kind of external. People see where they meet you and see you where you are today. But like going back to this internship experience, obviously that was the beginning. That was the sort of throwing yourself in the deep end and let's see what Kassandra's capable of. Was there any sort of moments during that internship in that year period where you sort of wanted to just think, oh, do you know, I'm just going to go back to employment, or I'm just going to go back and do what I was doing before, and maybe I'm not good enough at this?
Yeah. Well, as that internship, it had an expiration date, right?
Yeah,
And I knew that going into it because it was a year long. This was going to be this experience. And I thought, what the heck am I going to do now? This date is coming up, and what does that actually look like for me? And do I want to stay in employment? Is there any other option? If I was going to stay in employment, what are my dream positions? What are my dream jobs? Like, where would I want to work? And then there's the other part of that is, well, I've only been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
I've only been doing this for a few months. I just graduated school. Like, yes, okay, I'm 23 years old and now's the time to start your career and do all the things. But like, who am I to go to a large company and pitch myself as somebody who can do something for them? And so there was a lot of uncertainty in that because I wasn't sure that I had enough value to bring to the table, but I also wasn't sure what table I even wanted to sit at that point.
Right. So obviously for you was kind of figuring out. I mean, I guess at the ages of 22, 23, a lot of people will understand it. I'm just finding who I am, what I'm interested in. So obviously you was going through that discovery phase. You don't have to plug the person in, but who kind of came into your life to say, Kassandra, you could do this on your own? 'Cause I think, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on this, but I genuinely believe if you have, because we don't necessarily always believe in ourselves, because we'll go negative and sort of have that self-talk to be like, maybe I just need a bit of like security first. And then somebody else believes in you. It sort of nudges you, doesn't it, to sort of like step out there.
Yeah. So for me, it was my boyfriend, and he
Brilliant.
had said, yes, he was and same thing. No, not really an entrepreneurial background. Like, he works a traditional 9 to 5.
Okay.
And he came in and said, you're really good at this. There's something here. Why don't you just try it? If you hate it, you can always go back to something. But, if this is something that you enjoy, why not give it a shot and see where it goes? And so he was the person that really kind of set that catalyst in motion to say, let's set up some parameters here, and let's like set up some goals and say, okay, in 6 months, where do you want to be, and how do you want to do this? And do you have enough savings to, make sure that the bills are paid and you can take this risk? And so, yeah, he was the one who kind of set that first foot into place. And then from there, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. Let's go.
Oh, I love that. I love that it was support from your boyfriend as well. I think that's brilliant. Especially because, obviously you're stepping into a world of unknown. Obviously he was with you as well when you was in the 9 till 5. Did he see sort of that transition? Was he? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
he's been with me for 8 years, so he's
there
seen
you
it
go.
all from
Wow.
university graduation all the way through to now. So yeah.
Brilliant. And has he ever said anything like? I mean, I'm just curious here because I think it's important when you sort of go through these transitions and you go into these new worlds of growth that your partner's with you side by side, they're supporting you on whatever it is. Has he ever given you any feedback on like sort of like what's changed in you the most throughout this entrepreneurial transition? Has he ever given you feedback like, oh, Kassandra, you're more like this and it's great to see? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, in your 20s, as you said, you don't really know what's going on, right? You're just kind of showing up to the world, you're testing different things. You're like, I don't know, we're just going with the flow. And so to be with him through pretty much my entire 20s, both of us have grown so much. And so, him coming back and saying, like, look back at where we were, 8 years ago, and looking back at who we were then. It has been really, really interesting, because I think a lot of growth happens when you're this age. A lot of growth happens in your 20s because you're just trying to find your footing, and you're trying to find your voice and your confidence and who you are, because you don't really know yet, right? And so, yes, there's been many times where we've reflected back and said, who I was even 3 years ago isn't the same person that's sitting in front of me right now. And that has been really beautiful to be witnessed in, and also be a witnesser of.
Yeah, I think the sort of team element, there is a really, and it's nice to hear it. And obviously, if the guys are watching this, you'll see from Kassandra's face that it's so real. It feels that you've genuine support. And I think obviously in any given relationship, if someone's sort of wanting that growth, like we just said, just give it a go, do it, try it. There's definitely something there in you that can do it. If it doesn't work out, do you know what? You can always go back to that job. And that's, I know that's such a simple thing to say, but so many people still stay in exactly the same place. Just from your experience now being in the entrepreneur world, and obviously coming away from what you'd been so used to, like the employment, in your own sort of views, what do you think holds people back the most? What is it that's like the bottleneck from going after their dreams?
Ooh, yes. So I think there's a few different things here. If I had to pick the top three,
Yeah, yeah.
financials is number one. Because if I read a pod or I was listening to a podcast and I can't remember who it was, but a very, well-known entrepreneur had said the first thing that runs your business into the ground is not having the funds. And so a lot of people will start the side hustle. And if they don't have the funds to be able to support it, they can't quit their employment because they're in that gap. And so I would say financial is huge. That's one of the biggest blocks. The imposter syndrome. Who am
Yeah,
I to start a business? Who's going to pay me to offer them this service or this
right.
product? Is it good enough? What if there's a bad review? There's a million different things that we could go into there. And then I think the support system. And that is something
Yeah,
that has been really significant for me is my friends, my family, my boyfriend coming around me and saying, you can do this and you're going to do it and get out there and get it done. And the business relies on me as a person. And so having the people around me that have really supported me helps me show up every day and say, okay, I am going to take this seriously. This is something that I really want. And how am I going to show up in that? And so, yeah, I would say finances, support system, and that imposter syndrome that peaks up is the blocks that I see most often.
yeah. That's spot on. I really like the way that you've put those three key points together because it's got a mixture of both the personal and professional side, as in having a great support system. Imposter syndrome again, that fear of not being good enough, the fear of comparison, judgment. No self worth. Can't do it. All the things as the thoughts that go through our mind, that the overthinking part just kind of keeps us in the kind of same place. So this is great because it's obviously nice to hear that throughout this you've got support, and I'm sure people listening in as well have got that support, but maybe hearing this just from you in this way could be sort of that catalyst to open the mind a little bit. But just on the flip side of that, have you faced any resistance from any people? Have you had to sort of like leave people behind, or has there been any sort of, I don't know, disagreements?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm both in my personal life and with clients. And that's a hard one when it's with clients, right?
Yeah,
Because these people are coming to you, they're paying you, and then suddenly there's something that doesn't align anymore. And so, I call it firing my clients, but really,
yeah,
sometimes there's times and you're like, this just doesn't sit right. There's something in this relationship that no longer feels good for me and it doesn't feel in alignment with me. And like you said, having the support is great. And there's going to be people that push against that. There are going to be people that say, oh, your little business and you'll never make a career out of that. And I
mm,
remember calling my parents. I had a 6-figure year a couple of years ago, and I called my parents and I
nice.
was like, I just did my taxes and and I'm not saying that to brag, but what I'm
No,
saying
no,
is that I was able to replace my full-time income and then some, and in some cases make more than my parents had
yeah,
in their years.
yeah,
And I called them and I said, hey, like, this is real. This is really happening. I've made this. I'm filing my taxes. I'm paying the government what they need to, what they're going to need here. This isn't a little business. This isn't something that I am just doing to fill time. It is a very real thing. And so I think, yes, having the support is great. And those people that push against you almost give you the motivation to do it bigger, bolder, better, right? Because you're like, okay, you know what? I am going to do this and I'm going to do it for myself first. And then I might do it a little bit to show you, like, hey, I can do this and prove it to them too.
right. I like that. I like that. I was just going to say that what you said there about, obviously the financial year you had, and not like I say, he wasn't showing off. It was a point proven. It was a validation part that, look,
Yes.
this business. So I want to ask you this then, and I think
Yeah.
I already know the answer. Did
hmm
you find that your parents didn't really get what it is you was doing, didn't understand what the business was and how the model worked?
100%. They were like,
Right.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
And I remember them coming to visit me and they were like, what do you mean you have to work? Like, I just don't understand. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they didn't realize that there was somebody else on the other end relying on me to get these things done. Right. And love them to death and all of the good things. But like, they came from that employment world their whole lives. Their parents did, their parents did. And so entrepreneurship just wasn't something that was known in
No.
our family. Nobody was an entrepreneur. And so when I said, I'm going to quit my full time job to, be an entrepreneur, they were like, I don't know what that means. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so even to this day, sometimes I get on the phone with my dad and we chat back and forth and he's like, how's the business? And he's like, sometimes I still don't know what you do, and they didn't grow up in a social media world. So even
No.
that
Absolutely.
has been a huge, change, right? I'm like, oh, I just spent all day on Facebook. And they're like, what are you talking about? That's a job. And so it's been really interesting to watch them change their perception of what my business is and what I'm doing. And also understand that, like, I've gone to places and met clients. Like, I've gone to the States and been at an in-person experience, and they're like, oh, that client is a real person. I'm not,
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
here hanging out with myself. So it has been an interesting transition. And I mean, at the end of the day, you have to really enjoy the experience yourself, and you have to be committed to it, because entrepreneurship is not easy either, right? There's a lot of glorifying places on this end of the spectrum as well. And I think that you just really have to be committed to it. And if you are, it will work.
Yeah, I love that right bit there. The commitment, it's hard work. We'll go into a little bit of that after, but I think just
Yeah.
holding on to that, because I mean there is actually people that listening to this as well, Kassandra, that are 40 plus. Okay, and maybe in their generation they didn't have. I mean, I know I was sort of, when I was coming out of school, it was just Facebook. I just got a Facebook account, and then I'd not really used like Instagrams. Obviously now people are utilising it more for business, aren't they? So just out of your experience, obviously in the social media world, and obviously helping these people build confidence and connect more with their audience and be authentic, should we say, if someone was like, oh, I've got this idea, Kassandra, I've really got this great idea, but I have no clue how to even do social media because I've never done it. I've never used it in my life. I've always just been in an employed role. And do you know what I mean? It's sort of, where do I start? What do I do? I know it's obviously you'd have to have a conversation with them. I completely get that. But if there was one thing that you could just give them as a piece of, like, start here, what would sort of be that for them that they could take away?
I think a lot of people, and the advice that I received was just do it. Just jump in, just do it. And that doesn't work.
No,
we can sit here all we want and say, just do it. But the reality is that yes, there has to be some action. And I agree with that statement. However, there is something blocking you, right? And I truly believe that once you're able to move through, or just at the very least acknowledge why or how you're not showing up, all of those things start to dissipate a little bit and you are able to move. But if somebody's like, I don't know anything about social media, saying just do it makes no sense. Just do what? I don't know what this is, right? I haven't learned it yet. So, learning and understanding, I think most of us at this point are on some form of social media, or we know somebody who's on social media. I bet most of your listeners are hanging out on Facebook at the very least. So you know the platform, you might just scroll through, you might not post anything, but you kind of been around the block. You see it, you kind of know a little bit about it. So what I would challenge you to do is just get familiar with the space that you want to show up in. And there's a lot of strategy that we can get into about what platform to show up on and how to be there. But really it comes down to, once you're familiar with the space, you can then start showing up more. It's like when you go to a coffee shop. The first time you go to the coffee shop, you're probably a little nervous, right? Your friend says, hey, we're going to go to this coffee shop. It's downtown. You'll find it. No problem, right? So you're like, okay, well, where do I park? And what do I order? I've just never been there before. You're a little unfamiliar. Once you walk in the door, you find your parking spot, you walk in the door, you take a look at the menu, you find something, you're like, yeah, I would like to drink that. I know that I like that. You sit down with your friend, the anxiety calms down, right? If you visit that coffee shop once a week, that starts to become natural to you. You're like, oh, I know this. I know the menu. I know where so-and-so, there's a parking spot behind the building that no one really knows about. That's where I usually go. You start to become really familiar with it. Social media is the same thing. Once you start to become really familiar with it, it becomes less scary. And not necessarily, you might still not want to show up yet, but you know where all the buttons are, you know how it operates, you know where the people are. Then we move through the blocks of that self-confidence, that self-worth. And once we move through those, just do it becomes really easy, because then at that point you're like, okay, I know the place and space that I'm in. I know I'm worth something, and I know my voice has value. Now I'm going to get it out there and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's, I love that. I really do. I like the analogy as well with the coffee shops. I think that will relate to a lot of people, especially if they've got that fear, that nerves, that, I think as well, even like what you said, it might be that the profile's there. Like I say, you're finding your feet, you're finding your space, you do a bit of research, whatever it may be. It's a bit of a like calming way to come into it. And I've actually not heard because I've had marketers on here before and stuff, and obviously it is very much not like do it, but I've not heard it like that way. I think that's quite a nice, gentle approach, and I think for a lot of people, especially like what we said about, well, I mean, it could be anybody, but I mean, I guess I'm kind of directing it towards maybe people in the older generation that are fearing that wall of, I have no clue, I have got no technology sense whatsoever, because they're already sort of defeating themselves before starting. But that, what you just said, it's like, well, someone who's got social media, or you've probably got Facebook to stay in touch with family, whatever it may be, or family from up or down the country or other side of the world. So yeah, I think that's a really valuable share. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it's just start paying attention, right? Because we, like you said, we spend some time on social media. We probably scroll, we probably mindlessly scroll. Just start paying attention. Notice, oh, hey, that was an ad. Oh, hey, that was my friend's post. I don't know who this person is. Where's this coming from? When you start to notice these things, you just become more familiar with it. And so just doing it isn't always the first step, right? Get your footing, get your bearing, learn more about the platform. And then from there, you can take many steps to get to where you want to go. But you got to know where you're showing out first.
Yeah. And it's like you're kind of creating that awareness by having the attention there. But then it's like, it might just be that the Instagram is just a bit of a hobby where, you might say, right, you might create a balance, say it's just 20 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, but particularly just looking at what you're interested in. And then that might then ignite something inside of you that then may go, there's a business opportunity. Because then as soon as you sort of like transition that hobby mindset into like a business mindset, you obviously show up differently. So becoming a dad back in 2023 has definitely been challenging at times. Being on this entrepreneur journey, having multiple businesses, it can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. One way to kick off your personal development journey is nestled in the heart of Montenegro. Syro Boca Place offers more than just a lifestyle experience. It is the ultimate active lifestyle hotel. Whether you're looking to rejuvenate in their state-of-the-art recovery lab, take a dip in the 25-meter half Olympic pool with a retractable roof, or explore the stunning trails of Boca Bay, there is something for everyone. And if you're like me, who wants to stay active and experience what is on offer, so if you're looking to elevate your travel experience and feel better than when you arrived, to get in on the experience, head over to www.syrohotels.com. Just out of entrepreneurship then, obviously you've been in it 5 years. I want to ask you this because I think it's good for people to maybe not like, I mean, obviously we all make mistakes. We all sort of go through entrepreneurship and there's ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride. What's been the hardest thing? What has been really tough and stuff that just, like gets in the way and is the hardest part of this journey for you, or been the hardest part of the journey for you so far?
So coming from employment, you show up at your scheduled time, right? 9 o'clock, that's when the job starts. 5 o'clock, you're done. Okay, great. You have your lunch hour, you do all the things, you get your list done. You might have some autonomy in that. And this is the job. This is the role. Can you complete the role? Leave it at work, you go home, you hang out with the kids, you do whatever. What I found really difficult going from that to entrepreneurship was one day I just woke up and I didn't have anywhere to be. Suddenly it was like, okay, so now what do I do with my day? Because there's still, an 8-hour workday there, if you want to go that way. What do I do with 8 hours, and what am I supposed to be doing, right? And we're supposed to and should and all of these things. And so that for a while, probably about a year and a half, took me a long time to kind of really understand what that meant and have the discipline to be able to do it. A lot of people come to me and say, you have to have a lot of discipline in entrepreneurship. And at first I was kind of like, well, you kind of have to have a good idea and, want to do it. But I later understood, yeah, you do. And the reason why is because, it's very easy to, work 1 hour and sit on the couch and say, okay, and I'm done. Or, now I have this flexibility with my time, so I can work whenever I want. So I can adjust my schedule and adjust my day. And yes, there's freedom in that. And yes, it's amazing. And If you spend, 2 hours on your business a day and the rest is doing everything else that we enjoy, your business starts to suffer because you're not actually
Mm.
giving it the attention and dedication that it needs. Right. And so for a long time, I was like, yeah, it's good. And then I saw it, falling apart and I was like, oh no, this is real. And I was reminded that this is a business and it is still a job at the end of the day. It is
Yeah,
still
yeah.
something, yes, I enjoy what I do. And I am behind my desk from 8 to, 3:30. I sit here, I help my clients, I work on my business, I'm doing something to move the needle forward. Sometimes it's for clients and sometimes it's stuff like this. This is technically still work. It's
Yeah, yeah.
fun. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah, yeah.
love doing this stuff, but it's still moving the needle forward. Right. And so the hardest part for me initially was understanding that a business is your responsibility. And if you don't work on your business is not going to work. And so that took a long time to really wrap my head around and understand how I was going to make that a part of my life. And then once I did that, yeah, my business took off. Yes, my business was, much more successful than I even thought it could be because I started showing up differently.
Yeah, that is going to be so relatable. Or at least if it's not relatable to some people listening, especially in the early stages of the business, or if they're in a transition where they've got a side hustle at the moment and they've got the security of a paid thing, like you just said there. If you're not showing up for or the discipline towards your side hustle or your new business, like you say, it is going to fall by the wayside, and that's why then you just think, oh, well, I'm getting a wage, so I'll just keep doing that, or vice versa. I'll just, oh, that business is not going to work out, and I can honestly relate to that because I have set up a few businesses now, and every single time I set up a new business, because I'm so used to my old or business that I'm comfortable with and it's doing its thing. When I set up a new one, it's that new sort of, you don't commit as much as, and you leave it and you sort of slack a little bit, and then you see the business not going where you want it to, then it's like, oh, reactiveness of it. Did you, so for you, did you say it was a year period that it took you to sort of get to grips with building a structure around this new business?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, about a year and a half before I really gave myself a kick in the butt. And, I think we excuse ourselves away. Oh, well,
Yeah.
it's just a side business, so who cares? Or nobody's going to want it. Or I have other things to do. Or, we do it all the time because we're human beings at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just enjoying what's going on in life, like the summertime. A lot of my clients take the summers off. And so my business falls apart in the summer. After 5 years, I now know that, right? I know that in the summer it's going to get quiet. Now is an opportunity for me to focus on my business rather than focusing outwards, right?
Yeah.
And so you start to adjust those things. But like you said, every time you start a new business, every time you even start a new offer or a new
Mm.
adventure in your business, you have to nurture that. It's like a baby, right? It's an infant. It doesn't yet have the capacity and the reputability to be able to build something yet. You've got to nurture it. You've got to spend the time with it. And once you do and you really dedicate yourself to it, it can be great and it can grow into this beautiful adult. But if you don't spend that time, there's lots of things that get missed in between. And sometimes we make excuses for ourselves. And I'm here to tell you that I'm guilty of it. I've done it.
Oh, yeah.
And it just doesn't do anything good for us, right?
No.
Sometimes we just need a kick in the butt.
Yeah, excuses gets messy. It causes chaos. I mean, we do need a kick in the butt. I think a lot of people sort of need like a rocket up the bum, basically, to sort of turbocharge or charge up to sort of like, come on, wake up, let's go. You've got so much talent. You've got so much to give. Show the world what talent and skills you've got. What helped you? What helped you the most, though, overcome this sort of period of where you was in this, I guess, lost part, thinking, oh, God, yeah, I could just work for an hour and sit on the couch for the rest of the day. What helped you get over that?
A couple things. So surrounding myself with people who were doing it bigger than me.
Yeah.
That was a big one. Going into, I spent a lot of time on social media, and who was I following? Who was I consuming content from? What podcasts, what books was I reading? What was I consuming in my world? And I switched that very, at that point I was like, unfollow, blah. And who am I going to be inspired by, and where do I want to go with the business? It took me a little bit of visioning, right? Is this just going to be, a 30K a year job and it's just going to replace a minimum wage space, or is this something that I want to make millions in one day? What do I want? And that looks different for every single person that's listening. Somebody's version of success might be, I want to spend more time off with my children.
Yeah.
Some people might say, I want to make $1 million business and fly in private jets across the world. You decide. It doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter. You pick what you want your success to look like. But if you don't put effort towards that, then it doesn't matter. It's not going to get there. And so I think consuming content and surrounding myself with, okay, what's my vision? Where am I going? And then surrounding myself with people that also believed that that's even possible. And then suddenly I started to notice other people's success and be like, oh, okay, they did it. So it's possible, obviously. Now, how can I do it? And having those conversations, deconstructing people and saying, okay, you've built a social media marketing business to have a team of 5. How did you do that? What did you do to get there? And where did you mess up on the way? Where did you really do well? What would you do differently? Learning from that and then implementing it really kind of helped me say, okay, this is a real business. This is a real thing. How am I going to show up? What am I going to do? And do it because people have done it before, right?
Yeah, this is good. It's that, like you're coming back to that support system out of those 3 parts, but also seeing that it's possible. That always helps, doesn't it? Knowing that there's people out there that are doing something very similar to you, and it's validating that your business, like you say, it's real. So I just want to ask you off the back of that, did you ever question that your business was real?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I probably still do. In the sense, like, I think a lot of times as it goes back to, especially with a service-based business, a product-based business, you're exchanging something physical for money. And so sometimes that's a little bit easier to kind of wrap our brains around. Services are a little bit harder because there's nothing physical coming out of it. Yes, they're tangible pieces, right? When I create a content calendar for my clients, I create a month's worth of posts for them and I hand that to them and they go through everything. But it's not like I'm sitting in front of them and we're having this conversation. Now I'm giving them something and they can go do something with it. It's like, okay, here's this like arbitrary piece of content that, what's happening here. And so sometimes it feels like the business is real, the licenses are real, the clients are real, all of the things are very real and in front of me. And sometimes it feels like I'm being paid to create something that isn't real, And so it can be a little bit of a mind trip because, these clients that I have across the world, until you connect with them in person, it's like, yeah, I have this client over in the UK, but I've never really met them, but we talk every day. So it's a very strange feeling. And I think, probably once a year I sit down and I'm like, okay, so this is what's happened this year and how does this work and what is this really like? And yeah, it's an interesting, it's
Yeah, I can imagine. Obviously, I wanted to ask you that because
Mhm.
I'll give you my personal views before I come on
Please.
social media was just if I come across like marketing people, I don't know why. I mean, I don't see it now because I see it as more of a necessity for business and stuff, especially as a delegation tool. But I saw it as fluff. I thought it was a bit fluffy. I just thought, what's this? It's a bit shiny. It's a bit sort of like, yeah, what's going on here, whatever sort of thing. But actually, like what you said there, and I completely agree, in a service-based industry, because you're not handing something in their hand so that they can see, feel, and actually go, oh, wow, that's the finished product. Like, say, videography, for example, they sort of like, here's the start, here's the end. It's instant, because we're living in an instant gratification world. Obviously, for us, I mean, I'm talking about myself here in coaching, it's got to be it's a process. It's a trusting a buy-in, a sort of long-term thing. And no wonder we sort of have more so the imposter syndrome, the sort of question if it's a real business. But what keeps you going, Kassandra? What sort of, because obviously one side of your brain will be like, is this real? But then the other side is like, I'm changing the world. I'm helping businesses grow and expand.
Yeah, I think what really motivates me is being able to see their business expand. So it's kind of like a third party relation almost. So when I help my client and they are able to reach more people through the work that they're doing, I feel like in some way I'm helping those people as well. And so I love being able to sit down with a client and start from one place and move to a whole other, direction in 6 months and then look back and say, okay, you had 3 clients here and now you have 12 clients, and look at how many more people you're helping through your work because of the work that we're doing. And so I feel like my outreach goes through them and is able to expand to their networks. And that really helps me stay motivated and realize that what I am doing is making an impact. Because, like you said, social media can be a lot of fluff, it can be a lot of performative pieces. And sometimes, I'm guilty of it. We kind of get lost inside of that rabbit hole. And coming back to who you are, how you're helping people, and the impact that you're making. So when I'm able to help my clients move through that process and they're able then to serve more people because of it, done. Sign me up. I'm here for it.
Yeah. You can feel the passion in that. I think just what you said there about the performance. Obviously, we're all guilty of it from time to time. We sort of want to show off a little bit, like, "Oof, look what's happened here. Look what I've got this award or something." Bang, and inevitably it makes you feel good, right? It's a bit of a dopamine hit. So, what helps you stay connected to your true self in what you do?
A lot of times when I feel performative or inauthentic, it feels icky. There's something about it that just feels off, and I hesitate to post it, or I spend a lot of time on social media. I am on my Instagram stories probably 4, 5, 10 times a day, right? I'm spending a lot of time in these places. I'm sending voice notes. I'm talking to people. It's very natural for me. And so if I'm recording something and then I'm recording it again and again and again, there's something wrong here. Right? Because I can record a minute-long video off the back of my hand. I'm very natural in speaking because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
If there's something that's coming up there, or if I've created, I started to create an offer, but then I kind of backpedal a little bit. I'm like, there's something, I don't want to finish this yet. I don't want to send this to people. Like, there's something wrong here. And I often tell people to lean into that, right? If you start saying, okay, I hate showing up to work. Yeah, there might be like, okay, I just, not in love with the job, but there's something blocking you there. There's a reason why. And I always challenge us to look a little bit deeper into that and say, okay, red flag is up. What's the danger here? And sometimes it's our ego getting in the way. And sometimes it's real, right? It's me now saying, okay, I'm stepping outside of my authentic self. A lot of marketing a couple of years ago, and even now, was a money focused. I made $1 million. I did this. I did
10K,
that.
6 figures a
right,
month.
10K every day, blah, 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 right? That was the messaging plastered all over the internet. And I fed into that for a hot second. Because I was like, okay, what do we got going on here? And you start to feed into that, right? But I was like, that feels really gross for me. And I went back and removed all those posts because I don't feel that that is my messaging. I felt I got sucked into somebody else's version of what that is, right? And so I think, look at yourself, right? Understand who you are, your values. This changes over time. We're not the same people we were 10 years ago, no matter your age. But really look into, if there is something, stop. If you don't press send, if you don't do it immediately, there's something wrong, and take a look.
Yeah, I think there's a signal, isn't there? I think if you really slow down, because obviously we're quite fast, post, got to get it
Always.
out. A lot of pressure, yeah. And I understand speed. Speed is quite a good thing, but for opportunities and momentum. But you do know, don't you? Like you do know it, and if it keeps coming up, it's like, I mean, just from your own experience, because obviously you work with businesses, and obviously you've been through these yourself. What do you think? Like, what do you think keeps people just ignoring it or avoiding it? What do you think that reason? If you was to pinpoint that, what do you think the reason is?
There could be a lot of different things there. A lot of us don't want to hold up the mirror to ourselves. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times we're so focused outwards, right? They're not doing it right. They screwed this up. They. But we forget that if you turn the mirror around, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And we have our own, crap that we're coming to the table with. And so when we outwards and we project and we put all that on other people, we never have to look at ourselves. And so when you turn the mirror around and somebody said, oftentimes people, well, depends on who your friend group is, but a friend might say, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that you should slow down and think about this because I think that that's going to be a huge problem. You get defensive right away. You back up. That's a bad friend. What do they know? They're not looking out for me. But if you turn the mirror around, you know what? Maybe they have a little bit of something there. Maybe there is something I need to slow down about. And so when it comes to social media, it's the same thing, right? We push it out every other direction. They're doing this and I'm going to do this. But when somebody turns it around and says, and they make a comment about, we have negative comments that come up sometimes, and someone makes a comment at you, a lot of people they're just cranky, they're bad, like who cares? I'm going to delete it. But turn around for a second. Just take a moment to self-reflect. I'm not saying get dragged down by negative comments, but just take a moment and slow down. Like you said, take a second. Okay, is this something that I identify with? Is this a problem here? Or is this someone just being cranky?
This relates to life a lot, actually. That's a mic drop bit that you've just said there, Kassandra. I mean, that has got to come out as a short clip, as a bit, because it's so powerful. That facing the truth, right? The reality check by, again, if you're avoiding something, you might be saying, it's okay, or be all right, it'll sort itself out, whatever. But it's like, actually, it starts with you. There's something's giving you that signal. So I really, really love the way that you sort of putting that mirror up, taking a look, going inwards, because we are very quick, aren't we, to sort of blame, an outward thing and go, but it's the market, but it's the time of year, it's everybody at the minute because of inflation, all those, we're going back to the excuses part again, of all that. So for you, obviously, I'd love to ask this from you, obviously being in the entrepreneurship world, and being a business owner and stuff. And obviously you've had that experience coming from employment to self-employment. What would you say has been the key skill that you've had to develop and harness and embed to be able to grow your business?
I would say time management. Time management was huge. I was an organized person. I had the color-coded binders with all the schedules. My Google Calendar runs my life. So I was organized. But I think time management was really important. Understanding how long it takes me to do something, understanding where my time is most valued. I was talking to someone literally this morning, and we were talking about our phones. And he's like, yeah, I get these calls every once in a while. And, sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're just like telemarketers. I'm like, I don't answer my phone. If you're not in my calendar, you're not calling me. And he was so shocked by that. He's like, but what if you miss a sales call? What if you miss somebody? What if you miss a potential client or something? And I said, yeah, if it's really important, they'll leave a message or they'll text me or they'll have another way to get a hold of me. But the reason why is because I need to protect my time. Because if I am in the middle of a content calendar that I know is going to take me 4 hours, so I've blocked 4 hours off in my day to do this, to deliver it to a client, that person calling me now may have taken 15 minutes out of that, but it's taken me another probably 45 minutes to get back into flow, which I've now wasted a whole hour of my day because my phone rang.
Yeah.
And so I think time management and protecting that time is really important. And it takes a lot of time to like really figure out how you work. I've switched my schedule so many times, it's not even funny. I've done the time blocking. I've done the meetings all in one day. How does that work? I've done all of the different versions of what that is. And it really just takes some time to understand how your brain and your body functions, and then building your day according to that so that you can be the most productive person that you can be. Yeah, that was probably the hardest part, is like, okay, time management, how do I do this? What actually takes time? And, when does my battery just run dry?
Yeah. No, this is look, this is great because you found your way, but you've spoken earlier about obviously that coming from employment to self-employment where, like you say, your time had gone from having an 8-hour guaranteed shift. You sort of knew you was going in, clocking in, clocking out, and then you'd gone to this, or you woke up one day and was like, oh, what do I do with this time? But then you've done all the sort of things, like you've tried this, you've tried that. People, like I say, may work for some, may not work for others. So obviously, I'd love to know now then, because obviously beyond the boardroom, or beyond the workplace, should we say you spend a lot of time on your social media. So your social media obviously is attached to business, which is great. What does Kassandra do outside of social media? What do you like to do sort of in your spare time? Yeah.
I love being outside. I'm a sunshine girly. If we are just sitting on the deck drinking a cup of coffee or going for a walk or going to the park, like I'm so happy to be outside. So the summertime is like my favorite time. Ironically, the business slows down, perfect time. And so
that's
being
great.
outside. Yeah, I danced my whole life. I was a dancer. I do some yoga now. I try to get into the studio and just keep up some, physical fitness. But Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think just like having space outside of the business is really important, even outside of work, because if all you thought about was work, it becomes very mundane and it becomes really hard to,
Mm,
know who you are outside of just that title. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I happy to spend time, happy to have great conversations with people. Like if we're just sitting out on the deck on a Saturday afternoon and talking for 4 hours, bring it on. Like I love that.
Yeah, that's good though. That's good. Sometimes it's nice, like you say, because obviously being behind a screen, or being indoors, it can be a lot. Obviously, sometimes you want to kind of get away, have a bit of a refreshing conversation. Being outdoors, I absolutely love that. I am curious though. This is a very curious question. Have you ever taken a social media break?
Mm, I would love to. That is the dream.
Have
At
you ever
this
though, like
point,
with work or back? Yeah, I just wondered if you'd ever
yeah,
just sort of.
yeah. I I spent time on social media when I was young and like in university and stuff, but I never spent as much time as I do now. Now, like if you looked at my phone
Yeah,
log,
yeah.
oh my gosh. And so I never found it to be a problem or something that was so enveloping me. I was like, yeah, okay, like I'll look at it when I looked at it. It was never an issue. Now looking at where we are in the world and in social media and how it's all consuming all the time, I wish I could take a month off and throw my phone out the window and, do that kind of thing. But what I do is that when my workday is done, I have my office, I close my laptop, my phone, sometimes I don't even know where it is. Like it is maybe still in the office. It could be who knows where. I don't look at my phone as often in the evenings, if
Yeah.
if at all, because I don't want to sit there and scroll. I've done that, all day. I don't want to keep doing it. And so
Mm.
I just have a little more protection around that kind of time around on the weekends. Sometimes I don't even take my phone off the charger in the morning. I have my Apple Watch. If my parents call me or if there's an
Yeah, yeah.
emergency, they bypass right to my phone, right to my watch. But outside of that, it doesn't matter to me, right? Because I'm enjoying my life now and this is my time. So I would love to be able to, just get away and take a month off and throw the phone out the window. And I also recognize that these things change so often, and I think that's my own internal block coming up is what if I miss a change on Instagram and now I don't know about it, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
and so there's that
Yeah,
scarcity
the
coming up of
theme,
what if I
the
miss
FOMO.
something,
Yeah, the
right?
FOMO's coming in. Yeah, yeah, I get you, I get you. And this is the biggest thing that I see. And do you know what? You're not the only business owner that said this. I felt this. The reason I asked about social media breaks,
Yeah.
obviously, it's your business. Obviously, it's actually my business as well. In a way, not as probably intense as you, but like I took because I took a cruise over the new year, and I do tend
Yes.
to like once per year have a 7 to 10 day period away. Is it hard? All my days, yes. But I have to literally move all the apps out the way, and turn all the notifications off, because otherwise, if it's out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. For
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, it's not about having like a 10-day break or anything like that, but I was just curious, just with what you do, because obviously I'm sure it can get quite intense, right? I'm sure sometimes you may be overstimulated, maybe not burnt out, but
Yeah.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, like I notifications are off on my phone. Like I don't even the only people who can text me that come through are like my parents and my boyfriend. Outside of that, everything is turned off because like you said, it can just be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's funny you asked this question because my boyfriend about, 6 months ago was like, I'm deleting social media. Deleted all of his accounts, every
Wow.
single one of them, and
Yeah.
has never gone on them again. And I thought, whoa. And, I ask him every once in a while, I'm like, do you miss it? Do you feel disconnected? Like, do you feel like you're missing out on something? And he's
Mm,
like, no, I mean, sometimes like when I'm bored, I'd love to be able to just sit and scroll for a little
sure.
bit. But like, he's
Yeah.
like, the people that need me, they have my phone number. Like, I keep him updated if there's a picture of our niece or nephew, I'm like, hey, look how cute
Ah.
they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I don't really miss it. I'm more productive outside of that. And so, being in the world of social media where this is my livelihood, it's so interesting to see the complete contrast on the other side of somebody who's like, I want nothing to do with this. I don't even know what the new platforms are. I didn't know Elon Musk bought Twitter and now we're like, it just like doesn't exist. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's really, really interesting to see all of these pieces come into play and see how it fits in people's lives. Because, like you said, okay, I go on this cruise and I take a break from my phone. Yeah, it's
Mm,
hard initially, but it's also probably really refreshing and allows
yes.
you some creative energy to come back a little bit.
Yeah, it was. I agree with that. Yeah, it was a very hard commitment, but I'm somebody that sort of like commit some or say something or whatever, I would want to commit to it. Interesting what you
Yeah.
said there about obviously your boyfriend and stuff like that. So do you know, with you obviously having your phone as, you know, or your laptop, obviously your business, do you ever find though when you're sort of out taking photos or being out sort of enjoying a day-to-day thing or a catch-up, do you find yourself really trying to be present? Do you ever get distracted in any way? Do you ever sort of like go, oh,
Mm,
this is back to business a bit now, but I'm like, no, get out of business mode. I'm having some social with friends. Do you kind of find that wave happening?
there is times, yes. And initially, when I opened up my business, it was really, really hard to draw that line because I could sit here and text and still continue on our conversation completely like
Really?
engaged in both pieces. My
Wow.
brain was so used to living in a dual world where me and my friend would sit on her bed and I could text message and still have a
Somebody else.
conversation with
Text
her.
somebody else.
Right.
Wow.
And she thought, oh, she used to think that I was ignoring her and she'd get mad. She's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
put your
yeah.
phone away.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, honest to God, like I'm doing both things at once. I can hear you. I can tell you everything you just said to me. And so it was really interesting. As I've gotten older and as I've, been more intentional with my time, I'll check my phone. Like when I get out of the car, let's say we're going for dinner, I'll get out of the car, check my phone, make sure all is good. Nobody's on fire. We don't live in a world that would happen. But,
Yeah, yeah.
just for my own sake and peace of mind, make sure all is good. Then I usually leave my phone in my purse or I
Good.
leave it.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
big face down phone person, not because I'm being unfaithful, but because I just don't want to see anything that's coming up on my phone,
Mm.
right? Like even though I have notifications off, there might be something that pops up and sometimes, and I'm sure you deal with this too,
Yeah, yeah.
there's things that if you wake up and you check your phone or you check your email, or if you're about to go out with friends and you check those things and something sets you off, or there's a problem, or a client is upset about something, or something has
Yeah.
happened, it changes the mood of everything. And so now I'm walking into this dinner experience with my friend for her birthday and I'm pissed off because of something that's happened. That is
Yeah.
not the energy that I want to bring into the room, right? And so that's not fair to her and it's not fair to me. And so I really try to be intentional with, okay, here's my business day. That's when I'm looking at my business stuff. And like you said, we're entrepreneurs, so our mind is always going, but I'm less active in that regard. I'm not checking my client emails at 10 o'clock at night because stuff does come down the pipeline and sometimes
Yeah.
it's not great. And you've got to protect your energy too.
Yeah. So that's great. You've spoken about obviously protecting your time, protecting your energy. I honestly can't begin to express how that is like singing to me in my ears, basically, you talking about how, look, I mean, I truly believe as somebody who's setting up a business, especially like in the early stages, and if you've got experience and you're trying to grow something, expand it, you're sort of hungry for that. To switch off completely is, I mean, it's very, very hard. I don't know how you can truly switch off, but the way that you sort of have placed those boundaries in place, are key. Sort of how you put your phone away and all that, I think is brilliant. And I think it was very honest what you said there, and that's great because I know people, like say, listening in so far will be like, gosh, you've been really genuine and honest here because, so many people are like, I've got this sort of like super boundary, I'll lock my phone in a cage or, all these things that I know probably people make, but it's just, come on, like, it just sounds too,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Let's
sound,
be real here.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
just like talk, let's just talk
Yeah,
normal here.
I lock my chocolate bars in the cage in the fridge. Yeah, no.
I
That's
know,
not happening either. There's no
literally.
cages.
I know, literally. But no, this is brilliant. Well, we are getting towards the end of the episode. And this has been like such a fun, so real conversation. And I know so many will take, insane value from this. I want to ask you, because this is a question I love to ask the guests. What does mastering your life mean to you, Kassandra?
So good. When I was reflecting on, why did you start your business? A lot of it is, yes, I want to help people. Absolutely. And a lot of entrepreneurs will say freedom. And I thought freedom doesn't feel like the right word. Like, cause I feel like I am fairly free, even in an employment space. I still feel like I have a lot of freedom and a lot of autonomy in my life. And so for me, it was flexibility. And so when I think about designing my life, that's a big forefront of that version. And so sometimes that is going to look like busting my butt and working until 10 p.m. one night. and then the next day taking the day off. And sometimes that is going to be going on vacation, and yeah, sometimes still working and working in the mornings, and I'm okay with that. And so I think it depends on your version of what you want that to look like. But for me, it's flexibility to be able to do what I want when I want with the resources that I have, of course, and build a life that feels exciting, passionate, connected to people, and being able to just make a difference in somebody else's life. And so if I'm able to do that, even though, it's social media, and if I'm able to help somebody feel more confident and connected online, so then they can go out and spread their message and spread their story and their version of life with other people. And that brings them business, which in turn brings me business, which allows me the flexibility in my life. I'm golden. I'm happy.
Brilliant. It's bringing people in as well, though. It's obviously ultimately your own version, but I can see that it's always with other people. Like you say, you're the social bunny, so that sort of ties that in really, really well. Well, look, obviously, thank you for that. Thank you for spending time with us on the podcast today, Kassandra. Where can people find you if they want to connect?
Yes, thank you so much, Luke. This was amazing. Website www.letsconnect.ca. And then on social media, you can find me with my name or, Let's Connect. I'm all over the place. So come find me, come send me a message. Let me know you're hanging around. I love a voice note. So if you're brave enough to do that, send it over.
Yes, I love that. Brave enough to send a voice note. I'm sure some of the guys will. Well, look, that will go in the show notes anyway, all the links, so they'll be able to click it and stuff. But yes, thank you again. And it was great having you on the podcast. Really enjoyed this episode.
Thank you so much. So good to be here.